Hey, this is Travis with Oscar Mike Radio. How are you doing tonight? Number 195 on June 18th, 2020. Hope you and yours are doing well. So glad you could join me tonight. Trying out new stuff. Getting back in the swing of things from COVID-19. Sporting the new Oscar Mike Radio t-shirt. Very nice. Can't complain. We'll get into all that. Also, just want to say a big shout out to my sponsors, Joyce Asack of Asack Real Estate, serving on the South Shore. And, you know, her support has been key. There she is, Joyce Asack of Asack Real Estate. Mark Holmes of Reaper Detailing and Power Washing. And Sean Schubert, martial arts teacher extraordinaire, with the logo designs, updates by the godfather of Vet Unite. Awesome. Counting down to 200, learning new stuff, trying new stuff, trying to make this all work, and just having a good time doing it. Thank you very much for coming here. Being on. So, in my travels and conversations with people, you know, outside the podcast and in the realm of veterans advocacy, I get asked a lot of questions all the time. And one of the questions I got asked recently, what was this? And so let me give you some context. I was talking to a person who worked for a fairly sizable company in this area, and civilian, never served in the military, never, wouldn't know a lance corporal from a general, didn't know any of that, but knew in their heart that their company supporting the hiring of veterans was a good thing, was something that should be, actively managed and encouraged and, tracked to a successful outcome for not only the veteran, but also for the company. So they developed programs. They, took their civilian staff and employees who may not understand military things and took them to events for veterans advocacy outreach and to the VA to try to learn how to do this better, because they understood that they didn't quite know what was going on. They didn't quite understand everything going on with how veterans work, what makes them tick. And they wanted to make sure that their company was inviting to veterans. It's good stuff. It's really good stuff. And there's a lot of advantages for companies hiring veterans. You can report it to, government entities that are tracking, who you hire as part of your diversity and inclusion program, or, employee outreach program. There's just a lot of positives to doing it, right? So they did all this work. And the person sat me down and said, oh my God, we did all this, and we're finding out that a lot of times, we have a job, and we understand that the veteran does not know how to do the job right out of the service. She's like, look, if the person was, in a tank or, fired a gun, they're not going to understand, warehousing or process and procedure or any of that stuff. But, we're there to try. We're there to definitely try, right? And she's like, we do all this, and we get a candidate who wants to join, wants to get in there, and they don't show up. She's like, they don't show up. We get the resume, we talk to the Veterans Service officer, we talk to the person from the VA, we talk to their minister, we talk to their, family member who's trying to get them, some employment after the service. We're trying to do all that. We're all hands on deck. Sit down and do the interview. The three people were there, and we looked at their resume, their DD-214, and we looked at, what they did and so on and so forth. We understand what the rank means, on, Travis. And they don't show up. They don't show up. It's like, what does that mean? And I'm like, well, it must be very frustrating. She's like, yes. Yes. He's like, yes. Yes, yes, yes. It's very frustrating. Extremely frustrating. And I'm like, well, what I told her at the time was sometimes there's a lot of anxiety coming to a situation like that where you as the veteran who's been serving in a high responsibility, high speed, low drag job, coming from that kind of, theater of operations to a setup like this can be very intimidating. But I also, looked on the civilian side to see if this was a common thing. And, I found this article I'm going to put up here in a second. And, there's 4, and then, I'm going to add in a bonus 5th reason why people, and by extension veterans, may not show up for interviews. So let me do this. So this article here, and I'll have a link to it in the blog post. I don't know if you can read this. Wow, okay, I got to work on that. But anyway, the article goes in, and this article is from Recruit Shop, Australian article by Saxon Martin Huggins. And, this person identified, 4 main areas why people don't show up. So the point is, this is not just a military issue. This is also an issue in the wider civilian populace. I think the difference is people who are hiring managers and advocates at the, management and corporate level put a lot more effort into, onboarding veterans than they would somebody, who has been in the professional or, any kind of work situation for a while. Okay. So, Saxon went over, 4 areas that, he felt were reasons for concern. And this was across the board. So I looked at a lot of articles and they all came down to these 4 basic reasons. First one was anxiety. Anxiety. Interviews can be very stressful. I can tell you from doing podcasting when I first got started doing this that for me as the interviewer, it was stressful trying to make sure everything was working right and that I wasn't tripping over myself and making a fool out of myself doing this. But I could also tell at certain times certain guests were extremely nervous just doing a podcast interview, talking about something that they were very, authoritative about. They weren't used to doing it. So ratchet that up to times 100 when you don't have a job and you're trying to get a job and you're, trying to learn civilian speak and not come off like you're, an E4, E5, E3, captain coming out of a very structured, life to this area. And that stress and tension and anxiety and worry about, performing at the best of your ability, some people just say, forget it. I'm out. This isn't working for me. I don't feel like today. I'm just not going to do this. And come to find out, it's not just military people, it's civilians as well. But we can learn a lot from the civilian side as well as the military side as to why this happens. So, and it's a problem. It's a problem. And, you go into the fact that you can't, as the hiring manager, do anything about that. But again, the stressor for this person was a lot of time and effort had went into getting this interview for the veterans. Because this didn't just happen once. It happened multiple times. Okay. Reason number 2. Unprepared. So they got feedback from one of the veterans, and the veteran told them that he felt like he wasn't prepared. Even though he had read all the articles and looked up all the resources, he just didn't feel prepared. And then, from the civilian side, a lot of times people just don't prepare. So you don't want to go in front of an interviewer clearly not knowing what the company is about. So you just check out. You just check out. And the only thing I can say there as an interviewer and interviewee is this can be fixed. Preparation can be fixed, and preparation is the bedrock for success. So, there's no reason why this can't be, set right? But it's a real problem. Some of these, hiring managers and HR people call up the candidate and say, well, why didn't you show up? And the responses were, I wasn't prepared. I didn't know what I was talking about. Didn't feel comfortable with the subject matter. And, preparation. Prior proper preparation. This is also a reason that was actually very valid for the civilian military side was you're currently employed. So, if you are transitioning out of the military, this might not apply to you, but for some people, especially in the job market a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, if you got out of the military and had a pulse and could pass a background check and pass a drug test, they'd hire you to do almost anything. It was pretty easy to make that happen. So that's what happened. I'm working. I got this lead, but I'm not going to fool around with leaving and taking time off work to go to another job that I'm not really sure about. One bird in the hand's worth two in the bush, so I'm not going to go. So this was especially true with other things. You've got other situations going on, and you simply get tied up and with a meeting or a fire drill, and you're working late. You just don't have the energy to go and check out another opportunity. And again, this affects civilians as well as military. And then the last one here is what is called in his article as lazy and negative qualities. Lazy and negative qualities. So the person simply just will not take the time to follow through on anything. They won't put on the shirt and tie. They won't put on the nice, slacks, doll themselves up, make themselves look sharp. You can, have a chauffeur show up at their house to do the car, and they're not going to get in the car. They're just not going to do it. They just don't have the drive to do it. They've got other things going on, and these qualities are identified as red flags as to why you wouldn't want them part of your organization. And I'm not saying that military people are lazy. Some of us are, but they're just like not all teachers are bad. Not all cops are bad. Not all snakes are bad. Although my mom would disagree with that. We do have some lazy ones. It's just the truth, and there are some lazy civilians. So this is seen as the fourth spoke of the wheel as to why people don't show up for interviews. And then one of the things I'm going to just say from what I've seen in the job market for things I've had to deal with is it's red hot. I mean, at least it was until COVID-19. So let me qualify that. But I mean, in the field that I'm in, if you had experience and you could do the job and you could get a security clearance and were personable, which was the main thing that people look for, you had a pretty good chance of getting a second and third callback. But again, the most important thing is, if you're not used to doing interviews and you're not used to all this stuff, is to show up. Show up. Show up. It's not that hard. Maybe you might fumble over some of your words. Maybe you don't know what you're talking about. Maybe you drop, an inappropriate, that's good, but you might say an inappropriate word or use an off-color analogy for something. Just nervous. You only get better by practice. You only get better by practice, and practice makes perfect in this case. So, I mean, and I would just tell my fellow brothers and sisters out there who are nervous about going on job interviews, you got to understand that, to get you that interview, somebody, did some effort, put some work in. And people have long memories, and if you don't show up, it's not going to be, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but you might run into that person, 3-4 years down the road, and they're going to remember, hey, John Smith, didn't show up for that interview, maybe look bad. I got caught holding the bag, and they didn't care. So again, I would just encourage people to, show up. I know it sounds simple, and I know it's hard. Look, I understand it's hard trying to look for a job. I understand it's going to get really hard with everything going on in our economy and, what's going on there. But, if you have a job interview, show up. If you are uncertain about how to interview properly or what to wear, what to say, there are hundreds of resources out there that are available to veterans to get, kind of spiffed up and, inspection ready, right? And there's tons of Facebook groups that will help you and people who are just like you, just like me, trying to get a job and get some help and do it. And it's much easier with social media now to get that kind of help. Back in the day when there wasn't anything, it was, a couple books and some old crusty dude telling you, wear a tie and, say yes, sir, and no, ma'am, and, don't say any curse words. That's pretty much until I got to a situation where I was actually taught how to interview. That's all the advice I got. Now you can get onto social media or other places and really, really get some advice right there, or get on a Zoom call and go over an interview with somebody or a friend before you actually do it. So you're not alone. You're not alone. And the old adage is true, 80% of life is just showing up. I'm telling you that's the truth. I'm telling you that's the truth right now. Show up, show up, show up. That's all you got to do. And, I feel strongly about that because I want to see my brothers and sisters succeed, and we're going to need all the help we can as the economy tries to rebuild out of this mess that COVID-19 has done for us. So that's my spiel on the proverbial soapbox. And if you have any questions about that, or, want to reach out to me for some resources, by all means do it. My email is travis@oscarmikeradio.com. So now, as we end this, if you haven't noticed, I'm wearing a green OD shirt tonight with the Oscar Mike updated logo from Mike Damon of Vet Unite. Yes, I've got merch now. And really, really cool story behind the merch. I'm going to go into it later, but this lovely lady here, modeled my shirts, and I never even met her before. Never in person, but we talked a whole lot. She believes in what I'm trying to do, and she got a photographer, friend of hers who does photography, and her husband's in the Army, to take this awesome picture. So for the longest time, people have been asking me about merch and stuff, and it's going to happen, and it's going to get going. So all you have to do is go to OscarMikeRadio.com, and in the upper right-hand corner of my website, click Shop, and you can get into the shirts. They come in black, and they come in this, it's called Heather. It's not gray, it's Heather. Not gray, Heather. Anyway, I'm the only one with an OD green shirt. People are jealous. Well, I'm the host. I get to wear what I want. But still, I'll wear the gray and the black one. You'll see they're just as awesome. And the cool thing is, and this is for real, I'm keeping none of the proceeds. I'm keeping none of proceeds or profits. I forget there's a difference there. But anything that I would make on the shirts is being donated to Vet Unite, run by Mike Damon, a.k.a. The Godfather, and Wild Hearts Equestrian Program, local equestrian therapy program for veterans. Really, really amazing outreach for veterans with PTSD and PTS. So you can't go wrong. You're supporting American jobs from Authentically American. That's who makes the shirt. You'll see it in the link. So these are 100%, sourced, designed, logistically, put together, shipped, printed, and delivered right here in the USA. So you can't go wrong. So again, go to OscarMikeRadio.com, click shop in the upper right-hand corner of my site. Check out the black and the heather shirt, the one you see there in the image below, and check that out. And there's going to be more stuff coming on the way. You won't want to miss it. So again, we're counting down to 200. This is Travis. My name is, or rather, totally messed that one up. I'm going to leave that in there. My name is Travis. This is Oscar Mike Radio, number 195, counting down to 200. You'll want to stay around for some of those. Really, really good stuff. Thank you very much. This, as we say in Hawk, the missiles in flight, or maybe the missions in flight. Yeah, the missions in flight. That sounds good. We're in flight.